Welcome to No Bunts, the show for the casual baseball fan here on the Athletic Network. I'm Tass Mellis. With me, making the magic happen, it's JD.
Hello.
Hello, JD.
Happy birthday, Tassie.
Oh, forgot about that. Thanks, JD. I appreciate that. Very much appreciated. We are here on a Monday because I want to do a show on my birthday. No, we're here because even though we usually do a show later on in the week about baseball, I couldn't wait with what happened this weekend in MLB. Fernando Tatis Jr. suspended for 80 games because he took an anabolic steroid. We'll get to that. I put out the top 5 teams that I wanted people to cheer for the rest of the season. I got a lot of flack back for that, and we will have one of those people who gave me a lot of flack on this very show a little bit later on. But we have to start with the Tatis news, and to break it all down, we've got on Dennis Lin of The Athletic, Padres beat writer, to talk about it. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. You've written about it the last few days on The Athletic. He was suspended 80 games for taking Clostebol, which, as I mentioned, is a PED, a steroid. Initially, he said he took it to treat ringworm, a skin infection. We've had a few days since he initially said that. Can we now debunk that as complete BS? Is that where we are now, Dennis?
Well, that is the, I think, prevailing reaction across baseball, across sports to the statement he put out so far. Now, we haven't heard directly in public from Fernando himself. There's no clear indication of when exactly he's going to talk and expound upon maybe his explanation. But right now, it just does sound far-fetched that, you know, he took this steroid accidentally to treat a case of ringworm, which you don't often hear about either with professional millionaire athletes. But that is his story so far. The Padres did not seem to respond very supportively to that. They said they support, you know, MLB's enforcement of the PED policy. So as of right now, I think Fernando has a lot to prove.
Yeah, as far as enforcing the PED policy, is it standard practice for a player to be suspended 80 games, which sounds like a lot to me initially, but then thinking about it, it's half a season. Is that the standard practice for MLB?
Yeah, that is standard for a first-time violator, 80 games. He said in his statement that he initially appealed, which will lead you to assume that this positive test that he returned came maybe a few weeks ago at least. And he apparently didn't tell the Padres because until Friday night of last week or Friday afternoon, they weren't aware of this. So I think that's where AJ Preller, Padres GM, is talking about a breach of trust with his franchise player. And that's, you know, obviously part of why they're so upset with them. But 80 games is the standard for a first-time violation of the PED policy, yes.
Yeah, as you said, there seems to be a major gap between these two parties, the front office, the entire organization, and Tatis, in terms of how they feel about each other at this point, which is odd to hear Preller come out, AJ Preller come out and talk and say, yeah, we honestly, there's a lack of trust between the two parties. So for the uninitiated, why hasn't Fernando Tatis Jr. played this season? Give us the background.
Well, number one, we go back to December. MLB lockout had just started. He's in Dominican Republic at home. And suddenly reports of, motorcycle accidents start coming out. First he downplays it. His father, Fernando Tatis Sr., who I think you all know, hit 2 grand slams off Chan Ho Park in one inning at Dodger Stadium.
Yes.
They both kind of denied that it was anything serious. The lockout was going on. So Padres had to reach out through third parties. They couldn't have direct communication with players, including Fernando. They came away satisfied, apparently, at the time that wasn't anything major, even though, you know, riding motorcycles are, you know, it's pretty much a violation of any standard contract in sports, especially a contract of, you know, $340 million for Fernando. But that happened. And then, you know, the lockout goes on. There's some, you know, grainy images on the internet of Fernando wearing a brace on his wrist. And I think the Padres have reached out through, you know, third parties again to make sure everything is okay. Sounded like it was, and, you know, he wasn't experiencing great pain. And then the lockout lifts in February, and he reports to Peoria, Arizona, the site of the Padres spring training complex. And they do some tests and scans, and he had been complaining, I guess, of some wrist pain as he ramped up his activity to spring training. And turns out he has a fracture in there, a scaphoid fracture, probably the worst bone he can break in there, the most complicated bone he can break in there. And it doesn't really manifest that kind of break in a lot of cases, a lot of patients until, kind of when they start, ramping up activity. So it'd been basically 3 months until that time, from the time of the initial motorcycle accident to then. And they found out he was going to be out for, at least 3 months. And, it's been kind of a slow recovery process since the surgery he had in March. And then somewhere along the way, he gets busted for this PED. And that kind of, tells the entire story. They've been waiting for him this entire time to come back and provide a huge boost to the team. And right now they know for sure that he won't be back until next season.
Right. So the 80 games covers the rest of the regular season and the playoffs potentially if they are there. Just to go back, as you said, motorcycle accident this past offseason, then the PEDs. On Friday, GM Preller kind of left it open, as you wrote about on The Athletic, that the possibility of re-examining the circumstances of that motorcycle accident are still on the table. So I wanted to know, is there any possibility of voiding some of this monstrous contract of the $14,340 that he received? Is that on the table whatsoever?
I don't think it's completely off the table. I think the general consensus right now is it seems unlikely if they wanted to pursue that action. Probably the off season or March would have been the time to do that. I think there's a big question of whether they could have even proven that the motorcycle accident was the direct cause of the injury, that the fracture in his wrist back then. So, proving it probably would have been harder back then. It's probably harder even now, all these months later. But just, the visuals of this, the optics of this are obviously really bad. So they've got to say they're going to do their due diligence and go back and look at, what exactly transpired back then. If they haven't already, I'm sure they've done some research. But, this latest episode obviously brings up, what exactly he's been up to this entire year. He's obviously been on the aisle the entire year, so he's not been with the team every step of the way. But I think there's just a question of, how irresponsibly did he act? I think the actual act of voiding the contract, that does, like I said, still seem unlikely at this point. I think, his agent, Dan Lozano, is a very well-known agent in sports, and if they want to go down that road and try to test that option, I think that might open a can of worms they don't want to open. But at the same time, when something like this happens, you have to ask a lot of questions. I think the Padres are still in the process of doing a lot of digging.
Yeah, I would think because of the relationships, they are just going to try and rehabilitate this relationship with Fernando Tatis. But you do bring up, with everything you wrote and now here about this gap in communication, that he just started his rehab recently, right? He just started communicating with the team about his rehab only over the last month. Is that correct?
Well, he just started a rehab assignment, or he had been on one until this came out. And kind of funnily, he just kind of left the affiliate he had been rehabbing at in Texas without telling anyone there, apparently. Flying back to San Diego, probably knowing that this suspension was coming down. So that doesn't look great either. But he has been around the team pretty much the entire season, rehabbing, just not playing games until this past week, or minor league games, just to get back. But yeah, they have been around Tatis, most of this time. He's been swinging the bat for a while. That was kind of the biggest question, how he's going to come back. But they're also back in June. Some fans who saw him at Petco Park swing before he should have been swinging a bat. So that kind of speaks to maybe a player going a little bit rogue here, and the team was a little caught off guard by that. So kind of along the way, even though they've been around him this entire season, there have been some questions about whether he's been sticking to his prescribed plan of rehabbing and, following every step of the doctor's orders. So right now they're, he's back in San Diego. The team is going to play a series in Miami, and then they're going to go back to San Diego, and that's going to be, I'm sure, maybe a little bit of a circus to see whether he talks then or, stands up in front of the team and offers his explanation of events.
And he had that motorcycle accident in the offseason, as you said. Is it true, am I sort of forging this in my mind, that he was asked about the motorcycle accident and he said, which one?
That did happen. I was there, on the back patio of the Peoria Sports Complex when he gave that little press conference. I think there's some lack of clarity there, I think, in some circles about what exactly he was referring to. He did not deny that there had been an accident involving some kind of motor vehicle, and but I think when he said which one, he actually meant he had also mentioned that he had maybe had a fall in the field, just taking grounders or something like that. And by saying which one, I think a lot of outlets glommed onto that as like which motorcycle accident, when I think his version is probably there's only one. And then, maybe he slipped and fell while he was doing some workouts on the field one day. But again, that's not entirely clear either. I think a lot of these old events are going to have to be dredged up and re-examined as the Padres try to determine exactly what happened back then. But maybe that's something we'll never know at this point.
One question about him appealing and then retracting that appeal of the suspension. Why do you think he did that, Dennis?
Well, it appears, if he felt strongly enough about this ringworm story to, release it in a statement to the rest of the world, maybe he thought, maybe he does believe the story, or he is, determined to stick with it. And he was hoping that, he could say, I accidentally ingested something, which I think, tons of PED offenders, we've heard that story pretty much every time, that I didn't mean to put this in my body and should have been more diligent. And maybe he was hoping that he would get some leeway there, knowing that he's one of the faces of the game, and baseball really needs him to be a face of the game on the field, untainted to really thrive. So maybe he thought maybe there'd be some forgiveness there, but I guess there really wasn't there. So he backed off that option. And I think another question is, when exactly did this happen? Like, when did this deal happen? When did he get hit with the positive test? But he did think that it was worth going down that route, apparently. So right now it's also, a big question in everyone's mind. When exactly did this all start, this whole process?
One of the faces of the game met one of the faces of the NBA world once upon a time. He met Damian Lillard. You wrote a story about that. Can you expound on Tatis meeting Damian Lillard and that whole story?
Well, I think this just goes to show what a big superstar, crossover superstar, Tatis is. Baseball, he's obviously one of the most recognizable names out there, but he's been good for this game up until this point. Just the marketability he has, the charisma he has, and he grew up playing, I think, volleyball and basketball in the DR. Probably could have been good enough to go pro in some country, and either of those sports, he's just an incredible athlete, incredible talent. But he's always been a big NBA fan, and he's also, speaking of marketability, he's endorsed by or sponsored by Adidas, which also happens to sponsor Damian Lillard. And I think their shoe rep connected them a couple of years ago, and he went up there to sign his big contract. Fernando did, and up to Portland, Oregon. And along the way, he went to a NBA game, and their shoe rep introduced the two of them, and I think they struck up a friendship from there. But he's developed quite a few friendships across major sports, not only in baseball but in other sports like basketball. So it's kind of a shame to see a guy who's so young, so likable, so marketable, so well connected in the sports world have to deal with all this at this point. Although you could say that's obviously his own choosing, his own responsibility that he's in this situation right now. But he and Damian Lillard, I think, have kept in contact over the years. So right now it's kind of a shame that Damian Lillard's been a guy who's conducting himself by all accounts really well after he signed a couple huge contracts, and Fernando Tatis is only 2 years into his huge contract, and right now he's kind of been tarnished by the stain of this whole episode.
Yeah, you can see the connection there. Tatis, a few years here with the Padres. Damian Lillard, a lifer with the Portland Trail Blazers. Obviously, Tatis signed that 14-year, $340 million deal, the longest deal in MLB history then, with the hopes of being a lifer like Damian Lillard. And that connection, it seems to make sense. So I enjoyed reading that piece of yours on The Athletic. I'm going to take you off your Padres beat here for a sec, because Juan Soto, who was traded from the Nationals to the Padres and was supposed to be part of the big three with Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis this season, he went back to the Nationals park this weekend. He went back to play Washington. I was a little confused. Please please just give me any sort of background on why the heck Juan Soto was cheered and given the ovation the way he was when he went back to Washington this weekend after he declined nearly $500 million with the Nats, and they end up trading him to San Diego.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I think he was a little, maybe, I don't know if apprehensive was the right word, but just kind of curious to see what the reception for him was going to be, especially going back so soon after the trade. It was only 10 days since he'd been traded before they returned for that series in D.C. And I think if you ask fans in D.C. Just how much he's meant to that franchise over the past 4 years or so, he helped them deliver. He delivered a World Series title to the city as
right.
as a really young kid, and he did everything anyone could ask of a guy who'd been around for those 4 years. So I think there's some understanding that, the average annual value, I know this maybe goes over some people's head, but average annual value of what the Nationals offered him to stay in town is only less than $30 million. You see some of these big contracts out there these days in free agency, and he's only 23. So when he gets to free agency, he's only going to be 26, assuming he wants to get there. And I think, everyone knows who his agent, Scott Boras, is. So probably a good chance he tests that avenue eventually, but under 30 million per year over, that many years. And, there's ownership questions about the Nats, who they're about to be sold to. And right now they're the worst team in baseball. Just a couple of years after they won a title, I think it's understandable on a lot of these fans' parts that they would, understand themselves that, he doesn't want to lock himself into some kind of situation where he doesn't know exactly what the future is going to be and maybe where he can get a lot more money elsewhere. So I think they kind of realized that and recognized that and just wanted to focus on the good parts of what he gave them over the past 4 years. And, it's kind of an interesting contrast right now between him and Tatis, although, the Tatis story kind of shows you that no one's infallible and anything can happen to anybody who's as esteemed as, as admired as Tatis was. But, Soto, same age as Tatis, has conducted himself really well in public, to this point. And I think all those things combined with his production, his staying on the field for the most part, his winning a title, his kind of being the best hitter in baseball, especially that age, I think that the fans were inclined to give him some leeway there.
Yeah, I tuned into Apple TV Plus to watch that, to see the Washington Nationals and how they would react, because it was such a big story these last couple months. But yeah, they embraced their star. The average annual value, as you said, was a little bit low, and I appreciate you using the full term, because I haven't bothered to look up AAV as everybody references it, but it sure makes sense that Juan Soto would turn it down with his super agent, being able to go get him more money with the Padres, who you cover on The Athletic, and we will continue to read you there. Dennis, thank you so much for taking the time before you catch your flight. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you, Taz. Happy birthday.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Dennis. All right, after the break, we will get to the list that I came out with last weekend. The 5 teams that people should be cheering for. The Padres on that list. But yeah, there's some angry people. There are some angry fans out there, and we will have a No Bunts fan come on to tell me why I'm an idiot, why I was wrong to make that list the way I did. Stay tuned.
Cults. I'm into them. If I see a doc about a cult drop, it's clear the decks, pop the corn. I'm binging them all. That's right. I watched both Nexium docs back to back. Back to back. Why am I talking about cults right now? Because, well, I'm in one. It's called the Cult of Peloton. And I'm all in, baby. It's the instructors. Each one of them is my own personal Svengali. They're so damn good. Let me shout out a couple of them. Christine Dercole. She's a short track, well, not short track, but it's a track cyclist, right? Mm-hmm. And I took a class from her the other day. It was a power zone ride, 45 minutes, and she was all based around a race in a velodrome. So that she's talking about the strategy of, each lap, you pour it on, you pull it off. And it was all in power zone. It was interesting, and I was sweating my ass off, and I loved every second of it.
That sounds awesome.
It's great. Emma Lovewell, my kid, my youngest, shredded like abs of steel. And I say, Jackson, what's your secret? Emma Lovewell, he says. You should take some of her classes. This is real. This is actual truth. Every time I walk into this classic factory, he's on the floor over there, hanging out with Emma Lovewell, doing crunches and whatever else she's got going. So I'm going to get on that. But Dennis Morton, he's my guy. He's the cadence king. The guy understands music. He's always locked in on the beat, and I need that. When the chorus hits, that's when you're pouring it on, and I love that about Dennis. And speaking of music, the variety is actually insanely good. Are you in the mood for a 90s hip-hop? To blast out the 90s hip-hop? There's a class for that. You want to belt out some Disney classics? There's a class for that. The other day, I did a 30-minute grunge ride and followed it up with a 10-minute Barbra Streisand cooldown.
What a stack.
It was awesome. I was crying my eyes out by the end of it. But that's okay. I loved it. Motivation. What moves you? Anytime, anywhere, try the Peloton bike or tread risk-free for 30 days. Learn more at onepeloton.com. New members only. Terms apply.
Need to supercharge your hiring? You need a super hiring partner. You need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. Find great talent faster through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes it easy to start hiring. In fact, it takes 10 minutes or less for most SMB employers to post a job according to Indeed data. And Indeed they do the hard work for you. Thank you. When you pay to post a job, Instant Match shows you candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your description immediately after you post so you can hire faster. Indeed has such great talent too. In fact, 3 out of 4 of US online job seekers search for jobs on Indeed each month, according to ComScore. Even better, Indeed's the only job site where you only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring partner. You know, if I was making a tag team, I think Indeed would be in my corner because they deliver 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest in 2019. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/NoDunks. This offer, good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/NoDunks. Indeed.com/NoDunks. You know, this is my favorite line. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? Well, you need Indeed.
Welcome back to No Bunts. On last week's show, I ranked the top 5 teams that people should cheer for the rest of the 2022 season. There are a lot of casuals like me asking, who should I cheer for? What team out there should I ride with the rest of the season? My rankings from 5 to 1, the Mariners, the Mets, the Padres, the Blue Jays, and the Braves. No real frontrunners, no favorites. A lot of good teams in there. Obviously, I'm picking teams that could potentially make the playoffs. And I was really, really happy about that leaving the Classic Factory because that night, that very night, the Braves, the number 1 team on that list, they called up a man by the name of Vaughn Grissom. Is that a baseball name or what? Vaughn Grissom. They called him up, and he started batting 9th in Fenway Park that night. And in his first game, the 21-year-old, he ripped a shot over the green monster and flipped that bat like he had done it 100 times in his first game. The 21-year-old had his family there. It was an incredible moment for Vaughn, incredible moment for his family, obviously. That just doesn't happen. A 21-year-old comes into Fenway Park, blasts a ball 412 feet into the night. It was a booming shot, a real cool moment. The bat flip on his first home run, it just is everything that's right in baseball. People extremely excited, obviously, for the Atlanta Braves. I'm starting to get really pumped for the Braves because not only did he have that booming shot, but he looked like a vet that night and then throughout the weekend. He had a steal that night. He had a second hit that night. He looks very, very good. Guys stealing bases. It just feels like baseball to me. So I was very pumped about my number one team on the list, the Atlanta Braves. Throughout the entire week, I was extremely pumped. Now, actually, after that, I think we also have the clip, JD, of the entire team looking at the home run. Just a real feel-good moment for Vaughn Grissom, seeing that blast. Grissom is now the third youngest player in the majors. One of the other two is his teammate, Michael Harris II. You got to cheer for young guys. I'm starting to believe in this Braves team. We will get to all of that. I am just pretty pumped about my list. I think I'm doing pretty good here. But there were some haters out there on Twitter getting extremely mad, and I welcome that. I welcome the discussion and the argument. So one of those people who were very mad is Brady, a No Bunts fan and a No Dunks fan, a Baltimore Orioles fanatic. I think if I'm correct here, Brady, you said a slightly delusional Baltimore sports fan.
Very slightly delusional. I mean, I've got some very strong opinions about the team and about where they should be on the list.
All right. Well, I really, really appreciate you coming on. So we got Brady here to tell me why I'm wrong. Now, I got to let's give a little recap what the Orioles did at the trade deadline, just so people know out there what's going on with this team. There were 2 games above 500 at the trade deadline. A bit surprising for this team. That wasn't necessarily a favorite coming into this season. At the deadline, they traded for veteran outfielder Brett Phillips, which was a bit odd because their other moves were getting rid of Jorge Lopez, their all-star closer, who had 2.5 years left of control left with the team, and then career Oriole Trey Mancini for 2 pitching prospects. Lopez also went for 2 pitching prospects. So 4 prospects and then Brett Phillips. That's what they did. That's what they did, Brady, just to let everybody know. But why do you think? Just summarize. Why do you think the Orioles should be on this list?
I want to start first. It's a hard part to do with the trade deadline because the whole thing was that there were a lot of narratives that we were like selling it all off at the trade deadline, which was not the whole thing. Trey Mancini, as much as I love the guy, and I mean he has been here for what? God, it feels like 7-8 years or something like that.
A lifer with the Orioles.
But he really didn't have a spot. I mean, you got guys like Ryan Mountcastle, who when he's on, he's crushing the ball. I mean, he's sending it over the we call it Mount Baltimore over there with the brand new 25-foot wall or whatever. But and Jorge Lopez just had a little bit of like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like anytime he would blow a save, which was infrequent, but anytime it did happen, it took him a little bit to kind of get back in the rhythm. And I mean, we're seeing it with Minnesota now. I mean, what is he? 3 appearances, 2 blown saves, and he's just not quite there.
He was having a pretty unique year for himself.
Yeah,
1.68 ERA. Before that, like a 6 ERA. He is obviously having a special season for himself. But they did get rid of their closer, their all-star closer. Go on.
Yep. No, but then we replace him with a guy who's just a physical unit in Felix Bautista, like 6'7", 200+ pounds, throws like a 101 mile per hour fastball, and again another sub-2 ERA.
Right.
In something like 45, 50 appearances. I mean, like it's a consistent stretch. And now, he's a 27-year-old rookie, which you never really are super excited about. But I mean, he's been excellent. And just the whole team as a whole, even after the trade deadline, it's just there's a whole different energy than there has been within the last 5-6 years, because they have sucked, right? But if you have the Mets on the list, who over the last 4 or 5 years have sucked, and then all of a sudden start becoming fun, I feel like it's a little bit personal, man.
Well, I'm glad you picked out a team that you could take off, because a lot of these times with these lists, or when you're like picking all-stars, you say, oh, this guy should be an all-star. Jorge Lopez should be an all-star. But you got to take somebody off the list. Now, I did probably feel of all the teams that the Mets were the ones that are, it's New York. Do you need to have a New York team on the list? I feel like, and they are leading the NL East. So they're the one team over through with all five of them, that really is. I said there's no front runners. I mean, they're kind of a front runner, but at the same time, they are sort of the second best team in New York. So that's why I kind of included them there. There's the whole New York thing. So I'm with you. I like how you picked that one out. That's the smart thing by you.
And I like to say, I love Edwin Diaz. I love the trumpets. It is one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, and that's why I included Felix Bautista, the closer that you guys that you mentioned there for the Baltimore Orioles. I included him along with Edwin Diaz. The top 5 closer entrance songs, those two both on the list. Felix Bautista now coming in to Farmer in the Dell. Omar is coming, so I there was a nod for the Orioles.
Yeah, I respected it.
I find it hard putting a team on there that isn't going for it this season. As we've said, traded their all-star closer and Trey Mancini, who, he's a feel-good player for the Orioles.
Good story.
Yeah. Can you summarize his career with the Orioles? Everything that he did with the Orioles and why he is such a fan favorite and why it was such a difficult trade deadline for the Orioles.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because even when you saw it right after he got traded, there was a lot of coverage, at least down here, where like he's going, he's thanking everybody, he's thanking his teammates, he's thanks guys, and then he goes to the team doctors, and I'm sure everybody knows at this point, but he did go through cancer. It was the 2019 or 2020 season, somewhere in there, and I mean, he credits those guys with saving his life, and I mean, it's a tough thing to watch, like a guy like that who's like a pinnacle of just like, he's a great human being. And I mean, we have another story about a young kid named Mo who had some health stuff, who passed away, and like they both had the same, like, a connection. And I mean, we have Mo Gabbard now, and that's when he hit his inside the park home run at Mo Gabbard for his last hit. And I mean, it's like a storybook ending, but it's hard because he's older than the core group of guys, and he's a first baseman, and one of our like younger, better hitters is a first baseman, and when Adley Rushman's not catching, he needs to DH, and then Trey Mancini, it's hard for him to have a spot. So, but his career, I mean, he came up in, I don't know, 2016, probably something like that. And I mean, he just off rip has been a great hitter, great teammate, which you'll hear from anybody in the entire organization. Great teammate. And it's emotional to see him go, because obviously he's like the last piece from like those few Orioles teams, like 3, 4, 5 years ago that, were actually had a shot at making the playoffs. So it's tough to see that whole part of the sort of regime go. But at the same time, now we've got a clean slate, and I honestly don't think they're giving it up at the deadline. I mean, it's hard because you trade your all-star closer, you trade your franchise guy, but I think that
for 4
they
prospects.
Have pieces that I actually think they got 4 for Jorge Lopez. So I think it's 6 pitchers in total, but that's semantics. I mean, it's we need pitchers, and we don't really have a problem with relievers right now. And we've got Felix Bautista, who's, I don't want to say he's young, but he's inexperienced, and we can get him some experience under his belt. And he was, sort of the 8th inning guy, and now he can be the 9th inning guy and get those like high pressure situations, which is a great thing for a pitcher to have. And then you just open up more time in the lineup, whether that's the DH spot out of Trey Mancini or the first base spot, because we have a couple of guys who play first base or DH or who need to be on the baseball field every single day, like Adley Rutschman. So it's hard to kind of have him in the lineup because, I mean, we see it in Houston. I mean, he's not really playing, but because he's behind Yuli Gurriel, and he's not really an efficient outfielder, so he can't play out there either. And it's like, but when he does play, he's electric. So it's a really hard thing to kind of wrap your head around for like a guy who isn't like, I watch every Orioles game, so like I know what's going on the field, where guys should be, who's the future, and it's hard because he didn't really have a spot. But how do you trade your star guy for a low A ball guy? But it's a fresh start. So I think they're going to make the playoffs this season. I mean, I don't think they're going to be an easy out. We can forget anything that happened in the last couple games with Tampa Bay. We've never been able to beat Tampa Bay in the last 15 years. I mean, but I think they got a real shot at upsetting somebody.
Yeah,
at least.
I was going to say, bring up Tampa Bay. If this was a list for seeing the potential for perfect games, then the Orioles got to be on this list because
Wow.
Drew Rasmussen yesterday for the Rays, 8+ innings until his perfect game was broken up. First
Jorge
pitch.
Mateo.
Yeah, Jorge Mateo, first pitch of the 9th inning, rifled a shot down the line. First pitch, broke it up. Listen, that would have been great. I was sort of cheering against the Orioles there.
You know what? I like to say that low keys. There was a part of me that was like, at least I'll be able to get to see it. You know what I mean?
right. But listen, I appreciate you telling me that Jorge Lopez actually traded for 4 players. That's good. Thank you for coming on and saying that and correcting me. Mancini for another 2 prospects. But listen, that's 6 prospects that they traded for. My list was for who you should cheer for the rest of this season. Now the Orioles, they cleaned it up a little bit to try and open up their window for the next few years. That's what they're doing. Instead of just focusing on this year and instead of focusing on trying to be the best version of themselves this year, right? I mean, Jorge Lopez was having a career year. Why not keep him on the roster? Well, because they think that, maybe he's not as good as he is this season. You can get a little bit more for him. Trey Mancini, as you said, a little bit older and maybe not a perfect spot for him.
Yeah.
But I didn't make a list for who you should cheer for in 2023 and 2024 and who's setting themselves up well for the next few years. Well, the Orioles could make that list. I was a little confused by the Brett Phillips move.
I think that has left a lot of people very puzzled. But with what we gave up for him, I mean, what was the cash considerations? I don't think it was anything else. And I mean, we have a lot of guys on the roster who are very specifically good at one thing. Brett Phillips is a great defender. Can't hit for the life of him, but he's a great defender. We have a guy like Ryan McKenna who's pretty much exclusively a backup outfielder and a pinch runner. So that's just sort of the way that the team kind of operates. Is they like to have a few guys on the roster, on at least the active roster, who are like specialists. Like, it's the 9th inning. We're not going to come up to bat. We need a guy who's not going to mess up, not going to make a folly in the field. So
that's a great word, folly. A folly in the field. You know who wasn't making a folly in the field this week? I'm going to go back to the Braves because I was pumped to watch them. Vaughn Grissom wasn't making a folly in the field. He was a shortstop, comes up, he's playing second base, and we like the weird, quirky things on No Bunts. To see him practicing on pregame in Fenway Park with Ron Washington, who is the master of the infield defense. Everybody comes to Ron Washington and asks him how he can get better. Well, Vaughn Grissom was on his knees and just taking little shots from Juan Washington, first, backhanding balls, and then he put on like this frying pan on his hand to be able to, to basically transfer it to his hand really quickly, and then he was backhanding and using his footwork. So, weird stuff here from Vaughn Grissom. Great stuff. Everybody, again, comes to Ron Washington. Apparently, people were coming to him at the All-Star game and saying, how do we get better defensively? Teach me something, oh wise master. So seeing that's right up my alley for the Braves. So I loved seeing that. And then he turned around and had a second homer this weekend, Sunday against the Marlins. Yeah, it is the Marlins. They end up sweeping the Marlins, but he had incredible couple at bats in the 7th inning and the 9th inning where he fought back from a 1-2 count to take a walk, and then he had an 11 pitch at bat in the 9th to walk. I mean, the real deal, just to get excited about young players, along with Michael Harris II, who had a couple big dingers himself this weekend, 2 of the youngest players in Major League Baseball, and Alex Anthopoulos always plays his young guys more than any other general manager in the league. He brings up the young guys, so they run the bases. I'm excited for the Braves, and just to go down the list, the Jays, it's a homer pick. There's no doubt I'm putting them on the list. The Padres, just because they haven't accomplished a lot, and the Mets, as you said, that's a really good one to point out. That's probably the one I hummed and hawed a bit with for a long time. But you put the Mets on the list, you're cheering against the Yankees, so that's why they're really included. You're an Orioles fan, you understand that. And then the Mariners, since they haven't been in the playoffs since 2001. So I had to include them there. But listen, I'm not mad with the Orioles situation. I appreciate you coming on with all the Orioles garb. And you really think that they could jump a team that they lost to yesterday, the Tampa Bay Rays, or the Mariners or the Blue Jays, and be a wild card spot this coming fall?
I do, and I say that now that we don't have to play the Rays anymore, it's going to be a lot easier. But no, I mean we've showed like way better plate discipline, like across the whole board. I mean, Jorge Mateo is a guy, like you say you like defense and good defensive plays. Well, that guy could play some defense. I think he should win the Gold Glove. And I mean, if he learns how to hit a curveball, I mean, I think he's probably the best shortstop in the entire division. I mean, and that's really hard to quantify because like the defense outweighs the offense by like a lot. And I mean, he's batting .230 on the season, but he catches a fastball, he'll rip it into an upper deck home run, and guys like Adley Rutschman, I mean, as soon as he was called up, and I mean, enough's been said about Adley Rutschman, but as soon as he's called up, I mean, he doesn't swing at balls at all. I mean, you'll very rarely see it, and if he does swing, it's a strike. Crazy on base percentage, all the way down the line. You got a couple guys like Ryan Mountcastle, who hasn't been hitting as many homers as he did last season, but I think maybe the new wall plays into that a lot, but even their everybody's on base percentage is improved. Maybe not statistically, but you just see the guys have way better discipline. Pitchers across the board have been better. Pitchers last year were terrible, and now we've got several relievers with sub 2 ERAs and a lot of starters. I mean, Jordan Lyles has a 4.5 ERA, something like that, but he's leading the entire baseball in starts. A couple of guys who are going to be there every night, and it's an electric team when you actually. I mean, I've been to 20 games this season or something like that, but because I'm all in, because this is the first time it seemed like we've had a chance in the last 4 or 5 years, and the whole organization has a different feel, and I know I've said that a bunch of times, but it's almost like they can taste it, and anytime they get ahead, they don't want to relinquish it. I mean, we saw it the first game we played against Tampa Bay. We won 10-3, and I mean they were full swinging it when they brought Yu Chang, who's the second baseman. I think he's second baseman, out to pitch for the bottom of the ninth because we were up 9-3, and they were full swinging. They just want to bring the score up. They want to show people that they're not messing around anymore. I mean, they're not an easy out. And I mean, playing in the hardest division in baseball, it's tough. I mean, I think that if we're over there playing Cincinnati 19 times a year, we might be leading the league in record, because that's how it feels when you got to play the Yankees, you got to play Toronto, and I mean those are good teams, and I mean I know rooting against the Yankees, I mean we've had a couple crazy games against them too. I mean there was a game where Aaron Judge hit 2 home runs. I think Giancarlo Stanton had one, and we only lost by one run. So I mean they're competitive in the AL East, which is incredibly hard to do. And I think that they can leapfrog. I think they can leapfrog Tampa Bay, and I think they could catch Toronto.
Hey, it will be even tougher the next couple of years in the AL East. As you mentioned, the Orioles are only getting better. Obviously, the Yanks, the Jays, the Rays are always playing well. It is the toughest division in baseball. It is ridiculously tough. So it's going to be fun to watch games throughout the division. As you said, you've been to Camden Yards 20 times. I'm interested about the new wall. Tell me about the new wall that they put up in Camden Yards.
It's divisive, but I love it. I mean, it isn't really as, I know it wasn't symmetrical before, but you got in Camden Yards in right field, you have the scoreboard, which goes up 23 feet or something like that, but it's short. I mean, it's short, 350 feet. It's no pesky pole, but it's pretty short. And the other side now being so deep, I mean, it's fun. I mean, we went to go see the Yankees, and I mean, I watched Aaron Judge crush one way over the bullpens, and I mean, that's the shot now that everybody's aiming for, is those like center left bullpens, and it's just, I think it's way bigger in person, and I mean, I know it looks big on TV, but I mean, it's like. It doesn't feel quite like the Green Monster, but it's notoriously hard to hit over now, and I think we benefit that for the most, because I mean, like our star guy Cedric Mullins, who I think as of now is our star. I think Adley Rutschman's catched up to him, but last year he had 30 something home runs. I think it might have been 30 on the dot, but he hit everyone to right field. And now we've got guys who, like, even Trey Mancini was a little bit upset at the beginning of the season. I mean, you could go back and hear some interviews. He was not happy, but they just started hitting it over it. And I mean, it's really incredible to watch somebody hit it over a wall that far. I mean, and I mean, you see it in Boston. I mean, you have to hit it up real high, but I mean, it's incredible just to see a line drive go right over that fence, and it's wild.
Very cool. I like how you describe them as electric. That gets me excited for Baltimore Orioles, their team in the future, for young players, just like I am about the Braves, just to bring it back to them. You mentioned the home runs in Fenway Park, obviously Vaughn Grissom. He brought in Michael Harris II before him. Michael Harris II had an incredible weekend himself. He is a Rookie of the Year candidate in the National League. He is so good, and they're having so much fun. And it's perfect no bunts material here because Michael Harris II was hazed after the game on Sunday. This was his post-game interview. It's a real Super Trooper situation. Listen for the meows.
I was looking for a great pitch to hit, and I got it. And I mean, I was just trying to do anything I could to get on base to help us get a win. And I mean, I came up to the spot and did what I did, and I mean, I really blacked out. And I mean, it was an unmatched moment, meow. I mean, I'm just glad we got the win, and it was surreal.
Yeah, we just squeezed one meow in there. We didn't cut them all together, but he did a good job. It was a real no dunks, no bunts, the Basketball Jones moment, because we did that a long time ago, right, JD? We
had Brett Berry on the call in Summer League. Where am I?
Yeah,
here I am.
Yeah.
What did we have him say? Like a whole bunch of stuff. Meow was definitely one of them, I think.
I was also thinking when we prank called somebody. I mean, that was totally different. There was some meows there. But yeah, Brent Berry actually on the call. I had totally forgotten about Brent Berry. We gave him a list of things to do.
Yeah.
And meowing was one of them. So just wanted to squeeze that in there. I didn't think I'd be as big of a Brave supporter as I am now. But, to see the young guys in there and up and down the roster, the defense had Matt Olson, first baseman, running away from the infield and catching a ball over his shoulder this week. I didn't know he was a two-time Gold Glover, but he is damn good.
Legit.
So many guys that are good. But I am looking forward to some Baltimore Orioles baseball, Brady, because you got me interested. I want to thank you for coming on. Any last words before you go?
I'm gonna put it out there. This is my hottest take. I'm thinking within the next 3 or 4 years is a World Series coming back to Baltimore. May not win it, but it's definitely coming back to Baltimore.
All right.
In the next 3 or 4 years.
I like it. Not sizzling hot. Not saying they are going to be world champions, but at least
they're coming. They're coming.
All right, I appreciate it. It's tough. It's a tough AL East. I'll be watching. Really appreciate you coming on, Brady.
No problem. Appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. All right, stay tuned. We've got a very inconsequential poll to update you on after the break.
Helix Sleep is a premium mattress brand that provides tailored mattresses based on your unique sleep preferences. The Helix lineup includes 14 unique mattresses, including a collection of luxury models, a mattress for big and tall sleepers, and even a mattress made just for kids. And I can happily speak on that one because both of my boys sleep on a Helix mattress very comfortably every night. So how will you know which Helix mattress works best for you and your body? Well, take the Helix Sleep Quiz and find your perfect mattress in under 2 minutes. Helix knows there's no better way to test out a new mattress than by sleeping on it in your own home. Duh! That's why they offer a 100-night risk-free trial. And once again, speaking from experience, I can say that Helix is true to their word because recently, my wife and I, we purchased a Helix king-sized Moonlight mattress, and we realized after a few weeks there that it was probably a little bit soft for our preference, so we exchanged it for the Helix Midnight, which is a little bit firmer, and the process of making that exchange was as good and as easy as advertised. No stress, no awkward phone calls, you just fill out the form and bang, your exchange is done. And that, remember, was with an exchange. If you don't like your mattress at all, then you can return it and Helix will refund your entire purchase, but you're probably not going to do that because these mattresses are super, super great to sleep on. Not only is it the best mattress I have ever slept on, but the setup was fast and easy. Helix mattresses are delivered in a box and straight to your door for free. Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Go to helixsleep.com/nodunks. With Helix, better sleep starts now.
Welcome back to No Bunts. Unfortunately, we didn't do this live this week because we had to line up a couple interviews and all that TV production stuff. So I missed the fan engagement of doing this show live with the Bleacher Creatures. And to satiate that desire, I put a poll up on Twitter asking about video reviews. Because I watched a lot of baseball this weekend. And in baseball, when a manager calls for a video review, he puts his hands over his ears. He cups his hands like he's pretending like he doesn't want to hear something. Basically, he's asking the umpire to put on the headset. While in basketball, we see the sort of the figure round and round, the circle the wagons, the home run, which is obviously ironic here. Now, we put it up on the No Dunks Twitter account. A lot of basketball fans out there, and I say that because the basketball fans destroyed the baseball fans. Basically 90-10 here. 88.8 to 11.3. That doesn't add up, but that's what it says here on the poll. The finger round and round won out. Now, watching baseball this weekend, I kind of enjoy the hands over the ears. Maybe it's because I know what's coming.
Yeah.
It's just there's just one signal.
Right. The cans.
The cans.
I like the cans.
Yeah.
Let's put on the cans.
Yeah.
This is, I don't know.
The finger round and round.
I don't like that.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
I mean, I guess it's like, let's roll it back, maybe. Yeah. But
sure. You roll it back. Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
I guess. But it could literally mean anything. Like, gather around, guys, or whatever. Like, wrap it up. Let's go, something like that. But
and maybe because I don't like it because it brings back trauma for me. Having to watch the referees watch the video screen in the NBA, while in baseball, it's just the umpire puts on the cans and gets told from wherever they're making this decision in some room somewhere, this is how it's going. Done and done. So we don't have to see, even though it takes a while. That's sort of the beauty of baseball, because baseball takes a while as it is.
Yeah,
the video review doesn't really feel all that out of place. When we're watching the video replay of the call, we're watching action in baseball.
That's true.
And it literally is. I know it happened already, but it is a form of action instead of just pitch. Hey, listen. It sounds like I'm ridiculing baseball, but I enjoyed it this weekend. I also enjoyed that it's always just the manager that has to call for it. Like, we're all waiting for the one person to do that one signal that is universally known. Unlike basketball, where it's like player does this and play. I know players sort of do it in baseball, but they're all kind of. We all know what's coming. I don't know. It's just a little bit more streamlined.
No, yeah, I get it.
In baseball.
Yeah, one person. Is that one person.
And again, it's umpires don't look at a screen. So, yeah, I'm kind of talking about the whole video review process in totality. But they kind of have it down in baseball.
Yeah.
Even though they need robo-umps, that's the problem. But I'm surprised with the poll results here. I think if we did this live and the Bleacher Creatures were chiming in, we would have got a lot more hands over ears. It's
ultimately, we are tweeting this from a basketball show's Twitter account.
Yes.
Of course. They just see the basketball emoji and they're like, I vote for that one.
Yeah. They may have not even ever seen a baseball game, to be honest.
Well, when I read I've actually never seen the cans.
Yeah.
In fact, I thought it was like this, when you said hands over ears, like this.
Like I'm listening?
Like Dumbo ears, or like let's listen in. And I didn't know. I've never seen it before. So
yeah, let's put it on and have a look. The Dumbo ears, that's funny. Yeah, you're doing like a bit of the Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, like
give it to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Very funny. All right, good stuff. Speaking of basketball, we will have a basketball show this week. First time in a long time.
Woo!
Couple shows on Tuesday. There will be a No Dunks talking about the KD saga, a Christmas Day schedule, some uniforms. There will also be a No Breaks where we discuss Driven, the movie, starring Sylvester Stallone. I'm going to join Trey and Gigi and Graydon to discuss that. There will be an Is This Good, which is dropping Wednesday with Matty O instead of Thursday. So
That's right.
a packed 4 days here. Monday, a couple shows Tuesday, and then Is This Good on Wednesday. Still bringing you the heat. No baseball, pun intended. But for now, we shall go. Hope you enjoyed No Bunts today. Clipper Bros.
You heard it here first. Have a great time. Turn up. Love you guys. Awesome.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, ringworm is not pinworms. Don't Google that. Much like Evan Fournier, do not Google that. We'll see you next time.